Hi, I'm Jade, and today is August 6, 2019. This is my friend Julia. We work together, and I am interviewing her because Julia was brought up very culturally different than a lot of us were. She was brought up strict Mormon. And yeah, so I'm going to start my interview with her and ask her some questions. Do you want to just give us and tell us a little bit of like how you were raised? A little quick overview?
So growing up Mormon was really weird. Church was the most important thing. It didn't matter if I was sick or if I had other obligations like school, anything. Church was the most important thing. I had to be there every Sunday, every Wednesday, and I also had Bible study every morning from age 14 to 18 before school. So that was a lot. Lots of time and effort put into church. Very, very strict rules about, every single aspect of your life. Like what the things that you're allowed to say, the things that they even say you're not allowed to think certain things, which is interesting because I don't really know how to control that, but the things you're allowed to say, the things you're allowed to wear, the people that you're allowed to be around, literally just every single aspect of your life is very, very controlled and strict.
And is that controlled by your parents or by your preacher or priest?
Both. It depends really on the type of family that you're raised in, because obviously some Mormons are stricter than others. But since you do spend so much time physically in church, and the bishop is the leader, the preacher of the congregation, he interviews you regularly to make sure you're still worthy. And so he controls a lot of things and all of your individual. So the bishop is the highest in the congregation, and then they have a lot of other leaders. So I had a young women's leader. Young women's was all the girls ages 12 to 18. So I had a young women's leader. I had several leaders, and they also interviewed me regularly. And they controlled my life. They told me what to do, what to wear, all of that. And it was also enforced by my parents at home.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I think that a lot of people have a few questions when it comes to the LDS Church. A lot of people hear that the LDS Church is a mainstream church, which from what you just explained, it seems like it definitely is as far as rules and regulations. Do you think that the LDS Church, it seems that the LDS Church happens to have more children. So is that true for your family? Are you an only child? Do you have multiple?
I am one of 6 children. Okay. My mom is one of 7 children. All of her siblings have minimum 5 kids.
Oh, wow.
And that is the norm. Most of the families that I went to church with, they were either young families who were just starting out, or they had 6 kids wasn't even that much.
Really a lot, yeah.
So yeah, the emphasis is definitely on children. Mormons believe that our sole purpose on earth is to repopulate the earth with lots of other little Mormons. So they have lots of kids.
So is it true that the LDS Church, you said that they definitely like to control, so is it true that they kind of pick who you're allowed to be friends with as a child, or who you're allowed to talk to, and even when you get older, who you're allowed to date or potentially marry?
Yes. So, and these rules are more of just that it's looked down upon if you're friends with people who aren't Mormon, and people talk really badly about people who aren't Mormon.
Should be shamed.
Yes. So there were some people that it wasn't a strict rule, you're not allowed to talk to anyone who's not Mormon, but it was just understood. And if you did have friends who weren't Mormon, the assumption was either that you were trying to make them be Mormon and that was the only reason you were friends with them, or that you were just a terrible person and you like to hang out with people who are equal.
With marriage, do they really press that you marry a male who's in the LDS religion?
Yes, so Mormons have temples, which is, lots of religions have temples, but it's where they go to get married. They do lots of religious work in the temple. And so you are not allowed to get married in the temple if you're not Mormon, obviously.
Wow.
You're not even allowed to go into the temple if you're not Mormon.
Oh, wow.
And there's also a very extensive interview where they determine whether or not you're allowed to be worthy to be in the temple. Lots of weird stuff goes down in the temple. Like, it's just, and Mormons are not allowed to talk about what happens in the temple because it's sacred.
I have heard that when studying Mormons, there's a lot of stuff that is not allowed to be talked about.
That they are very big on, they say things are too sacred to be talked about, but I think that it's just really weird things happen, and they know people would
not
be really
like
weird.
that.
Yeah, not like it.
So is it true that the LDS, that the LDS men have multiple wives, and that is something that men are allowed to do?
So at one point, there were a lot of men who had died in the war. I'm not sure which years it was, but so the reason that they said that they did polygamy is that there were a lot of wives who were left without husbands, and at that point in time, women could not support themselves financially or support their kids or anything. And so men would just marry multiple wives to support them financially. But if you really dig into church history, there is a lot of evidence of people who were higher up in the church at that point taking other people's wives and marrying 13-year-olds and lots of... The reason they say is that...
and those are probably some of those sacred things that we can't talk about.
Yes, that is the thing. That is, like, church history in general, there's a lot of... I mean, you can find out a lot of things that they do not want you to know. They do not encourage you to research, like, really deep into church history because...
Oh, wow. So they just want you to listen to what they say and not question or do any further research.
They're very, very big on what we say is from God, and why would you question what God says, and you just blindly follow.
Okay, wow. So taking away from that, do you think that now that you are an adult and starting to think about a family of your own one day, do you think that this way and culture way that they raise these children, do you think that it is good, healthy for children? I mean, you were raised that way.
I personally, and I know so many people who have also grown up Mormon who have a lot of trauma. It was really, really hard for me. I mean, I grew up hating a lot of parts of myself because they didn't fit in to the Mormon culture. And if you don't fit in, then you're just bad. And just, I mean, it's just, I think it's a very traumatic and bad way to raise your children. I will say, I mean, they have a very strong moral code, which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, I think that children should be raised to know right and wrong, obviously. But the way that they enforce it is not healthy. I would never raise my kids to be Mormon.
Okay. Well, I'm going to conclude our interview with that. Thank you again so much for letting me interview and ask some personal questions about how you were raised. I know that's not like super easy to talk about, so I appreciate you. I hope all of you guys enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much.